Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Lauren here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Joshua, and he's selling his display advertising, digital product, and Amazon Associates business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. Welcome to the show, Joshua. How are you doing today?
Really good. How about yourself?
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm really excited to learn more about your business. But before we dive in, I'm going to go over a brief summary of the business. This is a display advertising, digital product, and Amazon Associates business. It was created in February 2017 in the hobbies niche. The average monthly revenue for the business is $5,425, and it makes an average of $4,603 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 56741 to learn more about the business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. The assets included in the sale are a primary domain with all site content and files, a secondary domain with all site content and files, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube social media accounts, and an email list with 98,302 subscribers. So now that we know more about the business, let's learn more about the seller. Joshua, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, totally. And I want to add to your list of what's included is there's also a Facebook group, which is potentially really useful to the business. It has like 100,000 people, like a lot of activity in it. I guess that's part of the like Facebook social media. But yeah, let me jump into like my background. So I got into like the whole online marketing and SEO space like 11 years ago now, something like that. I was still in college at the time and was starting to mess around with it and like, how can I figure out how to make money online and, hopefully generate a passive income. That grew into this business where I had a whole lot of sites. For a long time, I was really I went really deep on the whole PBN world. And I had a big blog network of like a couple thousand domains. I think at one point, probably at my peak, I had like 30 or 40 different websites. And I've sold a lot of them actually over the years through Empire Flippers, some in private sales as well. And then in the past few years, I've been taking more steps back. Somebody else has been running like my core business, and we've transitioned a lot more. Like we don't use PBNs anymore for the past couple of years, and we've transitioned to like much bigger, kind of higher quality sites. We'll get into it more, but this business is actually even separate from that sort of core business, the sort of core content marketing business that I have. And much of my time now is not even spent working in the content marketing business side of my life, I guess. Like I've gotten pretty deep into like the crypto world and into meditation and stuff. So this is kind of right now, like working on this business right now and working on selling it is sort of like kind of coming back to that in a sense for me, and kind of coming back to like this world of, content marketing businesses and buying and selling businesses and stuff. So it's kind of fun actually to like kind of retouch that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a fascinating story. It sounds like you've certainly got a lot of expertise in this arena. You have worked on many, many sites. What was the inspiration behind this site and why you chose to center it around this specific niche?
Yeah, so this site has kind of a little bit of a different story from like a typical site that I would have built or owned in the past. This site wasn't built by me. It was built by a woman a couple of years ago who just got really deep in this niche. And she was kind of like one of the first people to really write about this niche. So she kind of created like the dominant site in this niche. And then at some point, she was kind of done working on the business. And someone who eventually became my business partner, he had gotten in touch with her somehow, and he had found this business that she was interested in selling this business. And there was a problem for her to sell it because the business was really branded around her. It was like her in the niche, it was like her show, right? And that can be like a really problematic to try to sell like on a marketplace, like Empire Flippers, because there's kind of this question, like when we remove her from the business, like, is it still a valid business anymore? And I looked at the site and I was like, I think it's doable. I think we can definitely do it. I think it's a good deal. Like, let's jump in. So we partnered on this site and we made the transition from it being her personal site into like a much sort of broader kind of content site that just really covered the whole niche and was like kind of the dominant site. You know, it still is like the dominant site for this particular topic. And then after we owned it for about a year, we sold it. And what's happened now, we sold it actually with like very big earnout on it. Like we got a little bit of the money up front and then we kind of like, there was an earnout over time. Eventually the relations with that buyer kind of went a bit downhill. He stopped really responding to me and he wasn't able to pay like the scheduled payments that we had. So this kind of took a while. It unfolded over about a year, unfortunately. But eventually this past summer, I eventually got custody of the business back and I've kind of cleaned it up as best I can to kind of get it into like a sellable state. You know, now I'm listing on the marketplace. I talked to some folks about like, hey, would you want to like come in and work on this stuff? You know, we explored that, but eventually I just decided that I'm just going to go ahead and sell it and kind of let some of that other low hanging fruit be there for the next buyer, you know, in terms of ways they can kind of continue to clean up the business or take it to the next level. So that's the sort of history of the business and background.
Yeah, a fascinating story. And as you say, having that low-hanging fruit is a selling point. It definitely makes it more appealing to buyers. You've been on a long journey with this site, by the sounds of it. Were there any success stories from this business or lessons that you learned that you would apply to any future sites or businesses that you work on?
In a sense, like talking about what's happened just in the past few months of me owning it is sort of like not very exciting. I think it's maybe more relevant for me to talk about the year or so that we owned the business, that we were really actively working on it. During that time, you know, we made this transition, of course, from just this woman's site to like the site in this niche. And in order to do that, we brought on writers from the community. We brought on an editor to kind of manage those writers and manage like consistent content going onto the site. And it started to really become just like a different beast. Like it became like a different thing. Like when you ask me about success, I would say that like that would be like one of the biggest things that I would point at to success. And I had sort of had this a little bit as a seed in my mind when we started talking about it, but I didn't know like how this was going to work out or that we were really going to be able to pull it off or what it would look like when we did pull it off. Yeah, so I look back on that and I think like that was like really like probably one of the biggest success of the site, expanding the reach and continuing to just kind of dominate this topic is like a trajectory I see kind of for the business and something I think that we did really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It must have been wonderful to watch that success unfold. On the flip side of the coin, I'm sure there were some things that didn't quite work out. Was there anything that, you know, sounded like a great idea and then when you tried it, it just didn't work?
One of the things that I would put in that category was we were really convinced that the landing page just really weren't optimized and that we could get like a much higher conversion rate from those landing pages. And we hired like a conversion company and we paid them a couple grand to come in and do all this split testing. And it was cool because the site gets enough traffic. Like I've built a lot of content sites that are like kind of small and like don't get a lot of traffic. And when you try to split test something, like you don't really have enough people coming through to get a significant result in a reasonable amount of time. Like you might have to run an experiment for a month or two, and then that's just one experiment of many that you want to run. And the cool thing about this site has like so much traffic that you can really run experiments regularly. So this company came in and they did a bunch of experiments and they kind of created this whole new landing page and tested it versus the old one and tested a few different prices. And I was surprised that it didn't seem like it made like a particularly significant impact. I think it probably paid for itself and maybe even more so. I mean, when we look at like, when I looked at sort of like the number of sales versus the traffic or the amount of revenue on like the ebook sale, which was sort of like the main thing that I think that was the only thing actually that the CRO company was testing. It was like, okay, yeah, I think it's up a little bit, but like the traffic is up too. It was sort of like, okay, like it kind of feels like it came out in the wash, actually. I mean, it wasn't like a mistake in the sense that like I might even do something like that again because it's sort of like, well, might as well, right? And then if the value of the business goes up, if you have like $100 increase in sales because of it, and the value of the business might go up a couple $1,000s, like, okay, you've basically paid for it. So it's like not really a big deal to try it. But I was really surprised. Like I was just convinced like this is the thing that will really make this go next level. And then it's sort of like, oh, like kind of this really like bad looking sales page, like seems to have converted like similarly to this really nice looking sales page.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes getting results like that, it raises more questions than answers.
Totally, totally.
Looking at your site, talk to me about your typical work week. How many hours do you spend on the site and what sort of tasks take up your time?
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is I'm answering emails. Like I try to check it daily, like, on work days. Oftentimes there just aren't emails. Then there's like, I'm doing kind of like really basic moderation of the Facebook group right now. I'm just kind of like letting people in. And when participants report like spam, I'm just kind of going in and double checking that and making sure that it actually is spam and there isn't sort of like good contributors who are just kind of accidentally, get blocked from the group. So there's like a little bit of that. That's probably like takes, I don't know, 10 to 20 minutes a week. It's not super big, but it is a bit of like one of those things to check regularly. And then the other main thing that I just started doing just in the past like 3 weeks is I just restarted a weekly newsletter. And that's also like, that takes me maybe 20 or 30 minutes a week. It's not huge, maybe 45 minutes because I'm kind of like going through and trying to find really good content to put in it. Previously, like when we were publishing content regularly, this weekly newsletter was the way to announce the content that we just published. What I've been doing right now is just going back into the archives, just like finding like really high quality older pieces to put in a newsletter, just keep people engaged and keep them coming back to the site. And also the newsletter template that we have set up right now is it has just like a little information about the courses and ebooks that we offer. So it's kind of like another way to put that in front of people, like super, super soft sell. It's not even like, hey, you should buy this. It's just like, hey, just to let you know, because a lot of people who kind of just touch the site once or twice, they might sign up for the initial email course, but they're not like, they don't even think about the paid courses or the ebooks. So just got to put that in front of them. Again, I think is useful. So I've just restarted that. And honestly, that's about it right now in terms of like just regular maintenance on the site.
For someone who's not familiar with this particular hobby and topic, what skills or requirements are needed to run this business successfully?
There are a lot of moving parts. So probably like some experience in like running websites or online marketing or this niche. And then you learn more of the like online marketing part. Like something probably is a really good idea to have as like a base to get started with. I would say like more generally, pretty much all this stuff I think is very learnable. So like any of the pieces that you feel like you don't know, but you're willing to put in the energy to learn it, the time to learn it. I think that's like, I don't think you have to know anything really upfront about this topic or feel like it's a particular strong suit of yours. Like I've definitely approached this like 95% from like the online marketing point of view. And that's been super fine. And I feel like very successful.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it definitely sounds like quite a versatile site that pretty much anyone could run, which I think is a good selling point there. On the flip side of the coin, what would you say are the biggest risks associated with the business that buyers should be aware of?
I would say that there is, a lot of the traffic does come from Google. So that's kind of like, I guess I would say like even actually more generally, like traffic sources are kind of always a risk. I don't think you can get around this with online businesses in general. I mean, maybe it's a little different with like advertising businesses because you kind of have more consistent traffic in some ways, but I guess the prices could change a lot, which could ruin it. But, with this, it's like small tweaks to Google's algorithms can change things. Even, just for any site, that's true. Same kind of thing with Pinterest. Just like the Pinterest traffic could go up, it could go down. And then in general, like when you have less people going to the site, like you have less people are seeing the ads, less people are getting into the sales funnel and buying the product. So yeah, that's kind of a risk. Also, just sort of like the, given right now how much the display ads are like kind of the majority of the revenue, then if the dollar spend for advertisers changes, that also changes the amount of money you're making. And I think those are kind of like the most obvious risks, I would say, for something like this.
So, with those risks in mind, obviously, buyers will be looking to you for support. How much support are you willing to offer the buyers to help ease that transition?
I'm pretty happy to kind of like work with whatever a buyer feels like they want or need. I would really want to set a buyer up for success. If you're a buyer that's like, hey, I'm a bit new to this, like it's really important to me to have like more support from you. Like, let's negotiate that. Like, let's talk about that because I'm happy to jump in a little bit extra and just make sure that you're not kind of like left in the wind. And at the same time, like if you're a buyer who really knows what they're doing, like great, then we don't have to kind of include something like that in a negotiation. We'll just do like, I'll just make sure you know like the basic stuff you need and then good to go and we're done. Specifically, like, I mean, there's sort of this thing with sites on Empire Flippers kind of ask sellers to say like, hey, will you commit to like one or two Skype calls or, one or two Zoom calls and 30 days of email support? And like, totally, I'm happy to do that. But more broadly, I want to say like, I want to make sure that you're successful. And of course, like I'm also transitioning out of this business. So I'm not offering to be another team member, but I want to make sure they're successful. So, I'm happy to really like whatever you need, like let's make that happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think buyers will definitely appreciate all of that support. When it comes to negotiating the sale, would you be open to negotiating something like an earnout?
Yeah, an earnout's not great in this situation, partly because like the earnout didn't work out last time, and partly because one of the stakeholders right now in the business that owns this business, not to get too complicated, they're not a decision maker in the selling process, but they will get some of the money from the sale. They don't have as much flexibility with waiting an extended period of time. So probably not. But with that said, I kind of like, I'm really open to hearing offers. Like, if you're interested in this business and you have a way that you think that you could make buying it work, but it's not just, here's a bunch of cash, like, let's talk because I'm really happy to have that conversation. I don't want you to think that like, oh, there's no room for negotiation, so it's just not going to work. Like, let's have a conversation about it, if that's your situation.
Yeah, wonderful. I think it's great that you're open to different offers like that. Would you be willing to commit to a non-compete agreement?
Absolutely, definitely. I'm not going to start another site in this niche.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that leads us to the final question of the interview, which is, if you had to put yourself into the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this business is a business worth buying?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've kind of like touched on these pieces along the way, but to kind of summarize it, I would say that with a business like this, you're looking at like a really robust business overall. Like there's a lot of different revenue streams, there's a lot of different traffic channels. If you go do the unlock and you kind of poke around the topic in the niche, it's not something that's like going away, and it's not something where it's not very likely given the size of the site and how well it's established in the niche already. It's not something that like, oh, some bigger player decides to publish a couple articles about it and this site just declines. It's like really, really well established. So I think that that's like really good foundation to work on, and then like building on that foundation, there's just a lot of opportunity. But in some ways, the fact that it's kind of been in some decline, it's been kind of neglected in a lot of ways for the past like 6 or 8 months, because the previous owner, when we started to get into this kind of conflict where they were going to hand the site back to me, but they were kind of holding on to it as well because they wanted the monthly revenue from it. So they were kind of fighting me on when they were going to give it back. Like during that whole time, like the business was really neglected. And then since I've taken it over, like as you've heard on this interview, like I've kind of done like the bare minimum to kind of get it back into some swing, but I haven't been working on things like Pinterest, and like I just restarted emails and there's been new content being published. So in some ways, like if you turn that stuff back on, like I can't make any promises or guarantees, but there's a strong likelihood that you can kind of get back what's been lost in the past 8 months or so. There's almost like, in a way, there's sort of like this discount built into some of that stuff. So that's another thing that I think sets it up really well. And then, if you're the type of buyer who's not just looking for kind of a solid passive thing, but you have some ways that you might want to work on kind of taking the site to the next level above that, I think that there's a lot of opportunity with a site like this for a lot of experimentation with that kind of thing. Like a lot of the stuff that I talked about before, like whether it's, the sales funnel or whether it's kind of taking the Pinterest marketing game to the next level, or I don't think there's anybody's ever done anything with this site on TikTok. And let me tell you, like this niche is like perfect for TikTok. I don't know anything about TikTok marketing. So like, I don't know if that's a good idea, but like, wow, there's potential opportunity in stuff like that. So I think there's like really a lot that can be done depending on your interests, your skill set, what you're excited about learning. There's a lot that can be done to kind of build on this really solid foundation and take it to the next level. So yeah, I think that's what I would say is like solid foundation, potential to just like have some quick wins and kind of getting it back to where it was before, and then potential to really like blow it up to the next level with various types of projects, kind of depending on the way that you want to approach it.
Yeah, fantastic. Those are all really great points. And I think buyers are going to be listening very keenly to those. Thanks so much for your time, Joshua. It's been really great learning more about your business. It's given us some good insights there.
Yeah, happy to dig into it. It's really lovely talking to you and talking about it.
Great. Thanks so much. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 56741. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. Once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.